Hello and welcome to the Doc Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike DeLuke, and it's my mission to help you lead a happier, healthier, and more prosperous life, both personally and professionally. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Doc Podcast. I'd like to start by wishing everyone a very happy Thanksgiving. And I hope you're all enjoying some downtime with your family and loved ones. I also encourage you to take a moment to think about all the blessings in your life. So often, amidst the busyness and craziness of life, it can be challenging to find the time to stop and reflect on all we have. We become so hyper-focused on doing and achieving that the numerous blessings in our lives can go unrecognized. That's one of the things I actually love most about Thanksgiving. It gives us a chance to stop, recognize, and give thanks for those blessings. And since this episode is being released on Thanksgiving Day, it's going to be a bit different from the traditional format. Instead of interviewing a guest, I decided to put together a compilation of some of the earlier episodes that I released when my podcast was just getting started. Episodes on stress, vision and goals, and achieving financial freedom. Because while this is an amazing time of year, it can also be a very stressful time. Our list of things to do before the holidays and end of the year is seemingly endless, and the stress associated with trying to get everything done can really feel overwhelming and even unbearable. So in the first part of today's show, I'm going to talk about strategies to manage that stress. It's also that time of year when we need to start setting goals for the following year. I like to use Thanksgiving as the time point at which I begin this process. And I encourage you to take the time to set your goals for next year now, before you inch closer to and ultimately reach the end of the year. If you wait and put it off, it becomes just one more thing you need to get done before January 1st. And oftentimes it won't get done at all. So the second part of today's show is going to talk about strategies for developing a vision and setting goals. Another thing we tend to focus on this time of year is money. We look at how much we've spent throughout the year, how much we can spend on gifts and presents, how much our businesses have produced, how much we've saved, how much to donate to our retirement plans, how much to donate to certain charities, and how our investments are doing. So in the third part of today's show, I'm going to talk about how to make financial decisions now that will help you accelerate your path to achieving financial freedom. Lastly, I want to tell you all how truly thankful I am for your support of the Doc Podcast. This show has grown beyond my wildest dreams, and I have you, the audience, to thank for that. I have some amazing guests scheduled for future episodes, and I look forward to continuing to bring you great content in the upcoming year. Happy Thanksgiving, and enjoy the show, everybody. Today's topic is such an important one, and it's titled The Impact of Stress and What You Can Do About It. Let's face it, we all experience stress. It's inevitable and essentially unavoidable. Whether it's our jobs, money, family issues, sick loved ones, or a myriad of other factors, stress seems to be lurking around every corner of our lives. In fact, according to the American Institute of Stress, in 2022, 33% of people report feeling extreme stress. 77% of people experience stress that affects their physical health. 73% of people have stress that impacts their mental health. And 48% of people have trouble sleeping because of stress. There are three main types of stress that may occur in our lives each and every day. The first one is acute stress, which is a result of a brief event, such as a heated argument, maybe getting stuck in traffic. Number two is acute episodic, which is brought about by frequent acute events like daily stress at the office. And number three, chronic stress, which is due to persistent events like unemployment from losing your job, physical or mental abuse, substance abuse, chronic health problems, or chronic family conflict. All stressful events trigger the hypothalamus to initiate a fight or flight response, whereby the autonomic nervous system is activated to release corticotropin, which signals to the adrenal glands to release epinephrine or adrenaline into the bloodstream. This initiates a cascade of events associated with the activation of our sympathetic nervous system. When you think about this physiologic response from an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense. In prehistoric times, we needed this rapid response to quickly escape a dangerous situation or to fight off a predator, hence the term fight or flight. But when the stress continues, the adrenal glands begin to release cortisol, which stimulates the release of glucose into the blood and increases the brain's use of glucose for energy. It also downregulates hormones to turn off certain systems in the body to allow the body to focus on the stress response. These systems include digestion, reproduction, and growth. And the hormones don't return to normal levels until the stress passes. If the stress doesn't pass, the nervous system continues to trigger these physical reactions that can eventually lead to inflammation and cell damage. Cortisol also favors the accumulation of fat in the belly area, known as central adiposity. This is associated with insulin resistance and an increased risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and certain cancers. In addition, it lowers the level of a hormone called leptin, which promotes satiety, while increasing levels of the hormone ghrelin, which increases appetite. So you're increasing appetite and suppressing the ability to feel full, undoubtedly leading to overeating. All of this tends to lead to an increased risk of significant health problems, including digestive issues, weight gain, elevated blood pressure, chest pain, heart disease, decreased immunity, skin conditions, muscular pain, including headaches, back pain and neck pain, sleep disruption, insomnia, infertility, anxiety, and depression. So you're probably thinking, okay, great, Mike. Now you're telling me I've got to stress about being so stressed. And that's not very motivational. But while that's one way to look at it, I prefer to approach it from a bit of a different perspective. Instead, let the knowledge of what stress is doing on a physiologic level be a wake-up call to let you know that no matter how well you think you're dealing with your stress, it is taking a toll on you and your health in one way or another. In addition, let it motivate you to do a better job managing that stress. Our jobs are stressful. We have so much coming at us each and every day. Trust me, I understand this very well. As someone who built my own practice from scratch and ran it for almost 20 years, I know the challenges we face each and every day. And I've experienced stress at both ends of the spectrum, from having no patients and no money coming in when I started my practice to having lots of patients and lots of money coming in the later years of my practice. But both extremes present their own unique challenges. And with those challenges comes, of course, stress. So what do you do about it? Well, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you can eliminate stress from your life because, let's face it, that's probably unrealistic. I'm also not going to sit here and tell you that I was perfect at managing my stress or am perfect now, because I certainly wasn't and am not. But I can tell you what has been scientifically proven to decrease the impact of the stress that we inevitably face on our bodies and our minds. Number one, eat a healthy diet. A balanced diet can support a healthy immune system and the repair of damaged cells, as well as provide the extra energy needed to cope with stressful events. A study published in Nutrients in 2018 found that certain foods like vegetables and polyunsaturated fats, including omega-3 fats, may help regulate cortisol levels. You can also consider meal planning to have meals set ahead of time. I know that really helped me a lot during some of my most stressful times. Number two, exercise regularly. Physical activity will help to lower your blood pressure and stress hormones. I find that people tend to decrease their exercise when they're the most stressed or overwhelmed, which is the exact opposite of what you want to do. Now, you may have to decrease the duration or intensity of your workouts if you're shorter on time, but make sure you are exercising at least 3 to 4 times per week. On a personal note, I can honestly say that exercise has helped me stay sane, and I don't know where I'd be today without it. It was my time to blow off steam and refocus on the challenges ahead. You can also practice meditation or deep breathing techniques. When we're stressed, our respiratory rate increases and our breathing becomes more shallow. This decreases oxygen to the brain and potentially causes us to make less rational decisions. So as challenging as it may be, when you feel that stress level starting to creep up and rise, take some slow, deep breaths to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, reduce muscular tension, lower the heart rate, and calm your mind. I found what works best for me is something called box breathing, which you may have heard of, which is where you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and then hold for 4 seconds. Many athletes actually use this technique. It's great because you can really do it anywhere and anytime without anybody knowing. Example of what I used to do in the clinic. We wore headsets in the practice, so I'd have that on. And sometimes, TC's calling for you for a consult, and maybe your D-bond conferences, your assistant's calling for your D-bond conference. You've got chaos in the clinic around you, patients everywhere going on, maybe a parent talking to you, and you're just trying to D-bond the patient or put some brackets on. I found that if I just sat there, and I run hot as it is. I run and go at a fast pace. So for me, I could start to literally feel the sweat beading on my neck and just, my blood pressure rising. And I would just focus, and no one knew I did it. I had my mask on. I would just sit there and I would just go through the box breathing. So let's just try it together. Remember, it's going to be in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. Ready? And that's all it is. Do a few cycles of that throughout the day, and trust me, you will feel so much better. A study published in Current Opinion in Psychology in 2019 reported that meditation as well may actually lengthen or prevent the shortening of protein telomeres by reducing anxiety, chronic stress, and cortisol levels. Telomeres generally shrink in length with age, and those experiencing chronic stress accelerate this. This can lead to the death of cells and inflammation, which is associated with an increased risk of age-related dementia and cardiovascular disease. Again, breathing is so important, whether it just be routine thing like box breathing during the day to calm yourself down a little bit, or deeper meditation events that you can do in your own private personal time to help regain focus. The fourth thing you want to do is to strive to achieve work-life balance. Studies show that a periodic escape from the pressures of work can do wonders to reduce stress, increase productivity, and decrease the risk of physical and mental illnesses that are associated with workplace burnout. And this can be big breaks, like maybe taking a vacation, or even little breaks, just like designated catch-up time that you schedule throughout your day. Talking about vacations, you want to try to schedule them strategically throughout the year to give you planned breaks at times when you historically need it most. I felt pressure, and maybe some of you can relate to this, early in my career to not take time off during the weeks of the kids' school break. Those are very busy weeks in orthodontic practice, and I also felt the same thing during the summer. So school break weeks during the school year and summer was hard for me to break free and set up time to get away. But around 5 years into practice, thankfully, my wife had convinced me that I needed to start to set aside time to take off during those weeks to be with my family. And guess what happened? Not only did it give me something to look forward to during the stressful times or leading into those stressful times in the practice, but my practice continued to grow and thrive despite being closed those weeks. And while you don't want to necessarily wait until just having a few weeks a year to de-stress, because that leads to too much accumulated stress before and after those time periods, it's really important that you build in little tricks into your schedule to try to get those little things done that can turn into big things if they're not addressed every single day. Whether that's a call to a colleague or a parent to discuss a patient case, maybe checking in with a team member around something, or just writing charts and returning emails. Having that set aside uninterrupted time each and every day can be invaluable to minimize the feeling that your list of to-dos is growing to the point that you can't do any of it. I actually found that scheduling 30 extra minutes for lunch was a huge help in this regard. And again, as I said, we wore earpieces. I would tell my team, I would go on my walkie and say, I'm unavailable until whatever time it was. And that was my time. My team knew, unless it was an emergency, you didn't reach out to me because I was in my office and I needed to focus on the task at hand in order to get caught up on some of those things that I used to let escalate and build and then had to deal with at night. Fifth thing you can do is schedule fun activities or hobbies at least once a week. Whether it's reading, listening to or playing music, getting a massage, golfing, going for a walk or a hike, cooking a favorite recipe. Studies show that pleasurable activities decrease your stress levels and increase neurotransmitters in the bloodstream like dopamine and endorphins. Number 6, and this is a big one, get your sleep. Stress impacts sleep in a number of ways. For example, it delays the onset of sleep and causes interrupted sleep throughout the night, which prevents you from entering into those deeper stages of REM sleep that you need for your body to repair and regenerate tissue, strengthen the health of the immune system, and improve mood regulation and memory. Stress also prevents you from getting to bed on time, as you end up staying up late trying to get as much done as possible to minimize the stress you'll have to endure the following day. Truth be told, this was my biggest weakness when I was practicing full time. During some of the most stressful times of my practice career, I would only get 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night. Funny thing is, I thought I was pulling it off. I thought I was doing okay, and I'd be fine because I did so many of the other things on the stress-reducing list we're talking about that I could get away with it. But looking back, I was only fooling myself. And it was having a profound impact on my health, my mental state, my relationships, and my practice. And I didn't realize it until I finally started to get more sleep, and I began to notice, as did others, the difference in how I felt and how I acted. So while I know and can relate to the fact that it's not easy to get 7 or 8 hours of sleep, trying to get 7 or 8 hours of sleep a night is essential. Your body, your team, and your family will thank you. Take it from someone who knows. In addition, make sure to stop working on your computer or phone at least 30 minutes or longer before bedtime, as the blue light on the computer or phone screen disrupts sleep patterns. And if you are doing your work on your computer in the evenings, be sure to turn on the nightlight function to minimize the amount of blue light that comes through the screen. Lastly, if you wake up in the middle of the night, please do not check your phone unless it is an absolute emergency. The seventh and last way to help deal with the stress is to seek mental health counseling and other social support if needed. If you're really struggling with stress and anxiety, it can lead to severe clinical depression. Don't be ashamed of talking to a professional if you're feeling out of control and need help. Times are tough. It is very stressful. We have so much coming at us each and every day. And we all go through times when we need some help controlling our emotions. Seeking help from a professional when you don't have the answers yourself is a sign of strength, not weakness. So as I said, while we can't eliminate all of our stress, we can work to more effectively manage our stress and take steps to minimize the impact that stress has on our physical and mental health and well-being. It'll make you happier, healthier, and more productive. You'll be a better doctor, leader, spouse, parent, and friend. And chances are you'll also be around a lot longer to enjoy all the things that you're working so hard to achieve. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of setting goals. Everywhere we look, we see others that seem to have it all. The best practice, the best family, house, cars, vacations, etc. As top achievers, it's so easy to feel the pressure to have and do those same things. Maybe if I only worked more hours, saw more patients, hired an associate, sold to a DSO or OSO, got a second job, etc., I could have all that too. It's so easy to get caught up in this endless and empty quest, trying to have what others have, or appear to have, as the case may be and often is. And if you're not careful, it can cause you to make bad decisions, to take you down a path that you never intended or wanted to go down. So, you ask, how do you decide what you should and shouldn't do? Who you should and shouldn't follow or emulate? Who you should and shouldn't turn to for advice and guidance? The answer lies in your vision and your goals. Vision and goals are words that are tossed around quite a bit in the self-help and motivational circles. And it's often implied that people actually know what they mean and how to have vision and set goals. But while most people are familiar with the words vision and goals, many can neither explain nor create either one of them. So let's take a moment to look a little deeper into what they actually are and how we can create a vision and set goals that can help shape our future. Vision is defined as the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. The definition of a goal is the object of a person's ambition or effort, an aim or desired result. I'm going to repeat those. Vision is the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. And a goal is the object of a person's ambition or effort, an aim or desired result. So while vision and goals are often used interchangeably, they're clearly not the same thing. They can, however, be complementary. And that is what we're going to discuss today. Let's start with vision. Have you ever taken the time to truly figure out your vision for your life? Your blueprint of what you want your life to actually look like? Not what family and friends want you to do or to be, not what society says you should do or be, but what you want to do and be. And I don't mean what you want your life to look like when the day comes for your time to leave the world. In my opinion, that's a bit too macro and frankly too morbid. Instead, let's focus on smaller time periods and time points that you can still hit and arrive at when you're alive. Here's what I want you to try. After this podcast, take a moment to close your eyes and think about what you want your life to look like in 1, 5, 10, and 20 years. And I mean literally what it looks like. Pretend you're looking at pictures of yourself, your family, your friends, your possessions, your career at each of those time points, 1, 5, 10, and 20 years. What do you see in the pictures? Are you single, married, or divorced? Sick or healthy? A parent or grandparent? Alone or surrounded by loved ones? Where are you living? What are your most prized possessions? Again, do this for each time period in 1, 5, 10, and 20 years. Picture it in your head with your eyes closed. Open your eyes and write it down. That's your vision for your life, the compass you will use to guide all of your decisions. A helpful tip is to start further in the future, say at the 20-year mark, and then work backward to the year one vision or your vision in a year. It seems counterintuitive to do it this way, but when you stop and think about it, you need to know where you want to end up before you can start making those decisions on how to get there. As the great Yogi Berra said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else. So once you have your vision established, how do you get there? How do you create a life that fulfills that vision, that creates that picture? You probably can guess the answer: goals. Goals help you take the necessary steps along the way to create the life you envision in those pictures. So let's talk a little bit more about goals. A Gallup poll taken from December 5th to December 19th in 2022 surveyed 1,803 adults aged 18 and older and found that 7 in 10 Americans were actually likely to set goals in 2023. They reported that goal setting was widespread, but most common amongst young adults and especially those who are college graduates. Most likely a good number of the people listening to this podcast. Goals most commonly involved improved health and fitness, followed by improving one's finances. They also found that only 1/3 of goal setters plan to take 3 key steps to reach their objectives. They define these steps as 1, write them down, 2, make detailed plans for reaching them, and 3, focus on them throughout the year. Only 1/3 were going to take those steps. We know these steps work and increase our ability to achieve our goals. In fact, a study conducted by Dr. Gail Matthews, who's a psychology professor at Dominican University in California, looked at goal setting of 276 individuals and concluded that you are 42% more likely to achieve your goals just by writing them down. You are 42% more likely to achieve your goals just by writing them down. See, when we write things down, we clarify our thoughts and transform them from just hopes and dreams into actual tangible objectives. It also lets us remind ourselves of what our goals are, especially if you put them in a place where you'll see them every day. So why do so many people set goals, but so few take the steps that researchers have proven to be necessary to achieve them? And the answer? It's much more difficult and it's more time-consuming to physically write the goals down versus just thinking about them in your head as a thought. Plus, it's harder to hold yourself accountable if you fail if your goals weren't written down. So it's a bit of like a self-protection mechanism that we use, so we don't have to really face the reality if we fail. The irony is, we're much less likely to fail if we actually write them down. So just to recap, you need to picture what you want your life to look like in 1, 5, 10, and 20 years. Write it down. Then set 3 to 5 goals for each of those time periods, 1, 5, 10, and 20 years, that will allow you to reach the milestones necessary to fulfill your vision, and write those goals down as well. Then pull this list out monthly to keep your vision and your goals in the front of your mind. This will help you focus on them. And for some people, you may even want to do it daily, put them in a space where you can see them daily or weekly. But at the very longest, monthly, you need to revisit these goals and look at them to keep them in your focus. Now that you have a vision and goals for your big picture items of your life, you have developed the skills to do this for the smaller projects and obstacles that you'll face and encounter along the way. For example, say you want to publish an article in a journal. You first envision that article in print, what it will discuss, when it will be published, etc., and then set the goals to help you fulfill your vision. You can do the same thing with your practice. Maybe you're a growing practice and your vision is to be doing 500 starts a year in the next 5 years. Set the goals now that will allow you to get to that point in 5 years. Maybe you're in the later stages of your career. You want to retire in 5 years. That's your vision. Now set the 3 to 5 goals that'll help you get it done. And look at them and keep them in your focus throughout the days and weeks and months, and you will achieve it. So at this point, some of you may be thinking, Mike, life is too unpredictable. There's no way I can plan out what I want my life to look like in 1, 5, 10, and 20 years from now. To that, I say you're right. I agree. You can't plan it all out, but you can create a vision of what you want it to look like. Then, when things go awry along the way, you can just adjust your goals as needed to help you still fulfill the vision. After all, isn't that better than just whimsically swaying back and forth like a feather in the wind with no true direction, just hoping you're going to land safely at some point, but not actually knowing where or how you're going to do it? I'll end with a personal story. 2004, I was an orthodontic resident at UConn, and my wife and I went to a workshop in New York City that was put on by Robert Kiyosaki. Many of you will know that name and recognize that he's the author of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book and series. We had no money, no assets, and over $250,000 of combined student loan debt between us, which I know by today's standards, some of you have more, significantly more, but in the early 2000s, that was a big number. One of the speakers talked about having a vision for your life and setting goals. So during the lunch break, my wife Renee and I, we literally sat down at a table and we created a vision for our lives and wrote it down, along with our 1, 5, 10, and 20 year goals to fulfill that vision. They were very detailed. We talked about when we wanted to start a family, how many kids we wanted to have. We had just gotten married, so we were starting to try to plan our lives together, when we wanted to start having the kids, the type of house we wanted to live in at each of those points of our lives, when we wanted to be in different types of houses, the type of practice we wanted to build, and what that would look like at the 1, 5, 10, and 20 year mark, the vacations we wanted to take, the cars we wanted to drive, the second and third homes we wanted to purchase and where we wanted to purchase them, the boat we wanted, the age we wanted to achieve financial freedom by, and the age we wanted to be in a position to retire. And guess what happened? 19 years later, we literally have accomplished almost all of them. And the vision we created for our lives has actually come true. It's almost scary when you look at the list and look at how it's played out. And I don't think it's a coincidence. And while the path to achieving those goals was full of twists and turns and was often quite different than what we had anticipated, because we created the vision for our life and set tangible goals and wrote them down and reviewed them regularly, they became our reality. And you can do the exact same thing. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about getting to know your personal financial status. After my episodes aired with my CPA, John Vento, and my financial advisor, Justin Smith, I've had a lot of the audience reach out to me and ask really great questions about how to put action steps into place to achieve financial freedom, as my wife Renee and I did. In order to do so, one of the things that we talked about with Justin specifically was developing a balance sheet or your financial report card. So in order to do that, I decided to take the form that we use, clear our information out, and make it available to you. So if you go to the doc website, theorthocoach.com, and click on the QR code or the link, you'll be able to open up a free copy of a balance sheet. And what I'm going to do is take a little bit of time today to talk more about how to navigate that and fill it out, as well as give you a little bit of background of the importance of this exercise. It's striking how few people know their personal financial status. In other words, what I mean by that is, if I asked you now, do you know your monthly cash flow and your net worth? What would your answer be? How about if I asked you the amount of money you'll need to retire and at what age you're going to be able to work because you want to, not because you have to? That's the point at which you reach financial freedom, when you work because you want to, not because you have to. My CPA, John Vento, he wrote a book and he refers to that point as point X. For most of us, if we're completely honest with ourselves, the answers to those questions I just asked is no. See, in all our years of school, most people aren't really ever taught to learn anything about their personal finance, fiscal responsibility, or how to work towards achieving financial freedom. And the numbers bear that out. According to a survey of 1,006 adults ages 18 and older, it was conducted in 2023 by the website Credit Karma, 67% of respondents said they don't currently track their net worth. 51% said they don't even know how to calculate their net worth. 38% of Gen Zers and 33% of millennials believe the term net worth only applies to wealthy or rich people. And 56% don't believe knowing their net worth is even important. Furthermore, perhaps most shocking, 30% of Gen Zers said they care more about celebrities' net worth than their very own. Unfortunately, those celebrities aren't going to be around to care for you when you want to retire. The crazy thing is, it's actually really easy to calculate your cash flow and net worth once you have the right tools to do it. And that's where the balance sheet comes in. As I said, just go to theorthocoach.com, click on the QR code or the link provided, and you'll be able to get access to this amazing free resource. I'm also going to take a moment now to just explain how to fill it out, because I found that as I was telling people to fill out a balance sheet, a lot of them didn't really even know where to start, where to begin. So I'm going to take a moment now to do an exercise I do with a lot of residents when I teach, and that is, let's go through the components of a balance sheet and how you can go about figuring it out to calculate your cash flow and your net worth. Before we start, I want to address the question I get asked all the time, which is, Mike, why do we need to know this? Isn't this something my accountant or my financial advisor should be doing for me? And the answer to that is simple. Your finances are your responsibility. No one else's. You need to know where you are at financially and where you want to be in the future before you can have others help figure out what you need to do to get there. It's no different than, say, you want to lose weight, lower your blood pressure or your cholesterol. You have to know your starting numbers before you know how much you need to change, how much you need to lose, before you can even measure progress as you're making it. Once you know that baseline, your doctor can then help you figure out how to get there, analogous to what your CPA and your financial advisor can do. But if you don't know your starting point or where you want to end up, there's not much an accountant, financial advisor, or doctor are going to be able to do to help you. Once you've gone to the website and downloaded the free copy of the balance sheet, I want you to fill it out as soon as possible. Take your time doing it. And it's so important you make sure all the information that you input is accurate and thorough. Otherwise, it's like weighing yourself on an inaccurate scale. After it's complete and accurate, and you've ensured that, I want you to review it carefully and use that information, which we're going to talk about, to set goals regarding how you're going to make the necessary change to allow you to achieve financial freedom in the time frame you determine or desire. Then I want you to review and revise this balance sheet at least annually. It will be one of the most important decisions you make for your financial future. So let's get into how to fill out the doc balance sheet. So once you've downloaded it, you'll notice that it has 4 parts: income, expenses, assets, and liabilities. There's a 5th tab on there that's labeled balance sheet, which is a summation of all the information that you've entered. This sheet will automatically calculate your cash flow, which is your income minus your expenses, and your net worth, which is your assets minus your liabilities. So let's start with income, the first sheet. Income's pretty straightforward, right? It's the money you make. There are 2 primary types of income: earned and passive. Earned income is the money you get paid to perform a job or a task. Passive income is the money you make from a source other than an employer or a contractor. The second part is expenses. Expenses are also pretty straightforward. It's the money you spend. But what I find is people tend to leave out a lot of expenses. They don't think they spend as much as they do. So it is so important to include all the money you spend. Suggestion I found works very well for people is if you pull 12 months, 1 year of credit card receipts, credit card statements, and bank statements to assist in this process. Because it really is easy to just kind of forget about some of those incidental expenses that you incur throughout the year. And you may say, well, Mike, in June, I had to put new tires on my car. So it cost, at that point, $2,000. How do I do that? Well, you can just average that over the month. So you would just divide the 12 into 2,000 and make that your monthly expense for add to your car repair. And then maybe you needed an oil change and so forth. So the best way to do it is just add up those expenses in that line item that I've given you on the spreadsheet, and then just divide it by 12 and you've got your monthly average. As an aside, a huge way to keep your finances under control and get ahead in this financial game is to minimize your expenses. I realize that can be easier said than done, but it is so important that you don't spend more than you make. In fact, you should actually spend significantly less than you make and save the difference. Developing these good spending and saving habits and managing your cash flow, which is the difference between what you make and what you spend, is the key to financial success. No matter who you listen to or what guru out there you listen to about finance, you can't get ahead unless you put yourself in a situation of positive cash flow. In addition, since taxes are typically our largest expense, which John Vento went into in detail, it's really important that you're aware of both the federal and state taxes, if you're in a state that has a state tax, that you pay, as well as the self-employment tax that you pay. And you pay half of that even if you're not self-employed. If you're self-employed, you pay all of it, the 15.3%. So it's important that you include that and put that into your expenses because, as you know from John, taxes are your single biggest expense. As I mentioned before, when you take these 2 numbers that we now have, our income and our expenses, and you subtract your expenses from your income, you get your cash flow. If you have a positive number, you have positive cash flow. If you have a negative number, you have negative cash flow. The greater your cash flow, the more you can put towards building your assets, and the more quickly you'll reach financial freedom. So while we're on the topic of assets, let's get into that as the third and next part. An asset is something you own that has value and or can be used to produce positive economic value. In other words, it's something that puts money in your pocket is an easy way to think about it. So examples would be cash on hand, stocks, bonds, real estate, businesses, etc. It technically also includes items like jewelry, automobiles, boats, luxury items such as that. I find these are tricky though, because you're not typically going to sell them for profit, so they rarely produce a positive economic value. And not to mention that the latter 2, automobiles and boats, depreciate in value over time, almost all do, and so they're not really great investments, but technically they are assets, so you can include them. However, with the caveat that if these items make up a large percentage of your asset pool, then that is certainly a cause for concern. Lastly, let's look at the 4th area, and that's liabilities. A liability is a financial obligation or debt for which you are responsible. In other words, it's something that takes money out of your pocket. Examples include student loans, bank debt, mortgage debt, automobile debt, credit card debt, etc. So as I stated before, to determine your net worth, you just simply subtract your liabilities from your assets, and the doc balance sheet's going to do that from you automatically. If it's a positive number, you have a positive net worth. If it's a negative number, you have a negative net worth. And that's literally it. That's all you need to do to calculate your cash flow and net worth and complete your balance sheet. So conceptually, that's really easy, right? It's not hard to do that. But emotionally, this can be pretty challenging, especially if you don't have the best numbers. If you're spending more than you make and or you have more liabilities than assets or a negative net worth, it can be pretty humbling. It's kind of like realizing you go to the doctor and they tell you you're 50 pounds overweight or your cholesterol's 50 points too high. It's not something you really want to hear. But if that's the case and that's the reality, you need to hear it because you can't improve if you don't know where you're starting. This is just the starting point. So when you complete this exercise, you're just figuring out your baseline. You're also way ahead of the majority of Americans, as the research from Credit Karma indicated. And you've taken the first and most important step in your journey to achieving financial stability and freedom. So I've told this story before in some of my podcasts and my lectures, but 20 years ago, my wife Renee and I sat down to do this exact exercise for the first time ever. And let's just say it was rough. In fact, it was pretty miserable. We literally went through a bottle of wine while we were doing it to try to numb the pain. But our income was kind of equal to our expenses, and it was essentially equal. And we had zero assets, as well as significant student loan debt. So we had no cash flow and a very negative net worth. It sucked to see it, plain and simple. It wasn't fun. But seeing that reality is what motivated us to do better and allowed us to set the goals that we needed to set to take the appropriate action steps to change our financial circumstances. I'm happy and proud to say that we're now financially free and we work because we want to, not because we need to. And to be honest, it feels great. It really does. We also do still update our balance sheet every single year. In fact, we just finished it last week. The thing that's different about it is instead of being so humbling and painful, it's now actually kind of fun year after year to track your progress and watch your net worth grow and watch your financial report card get better and better and better because of the disciplined spending, investing that you're going to do along the way. Renee and I both believe that we wouldn't have achieved financial freedom as quickly as we did, if ever, had we not seen just how bad the numbers were years ago. But the key is to start this process today. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, not next year. Today. It's time for you to leave behind that 2/3 of Americans who don't know their net worth and join the 1/3 who do. So in addition to a link to the doc website and the balance sheet, I'm going to include in the show notes the episodes of the doc podcast that I referenced with my accountant, John Vento, and my financial advisor, Justin Smith. They offer amazing and valuable tax-related and financial information that really will help you set and achieve your financial goals as you work toward improving your financial literacy and situation. So thanks so much for tuning in. I'm really confident this exercise will help you. Reach out to me if you have any questions, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Doc Podcast. Be sure to visit theorthocoach.com to get access to ADA CERP recognized CE courses or to schedule a private one-on-one coaching session with me. Also, if you know of someone who would make a great guest for this show, or if you'd like to be a guest yourself, please email me at drmike@theorthocoach.com. And be sure to join the Doc community on Facebook for more great content. Thanks so much for listening, and always remember, you have been blessed with the ability to do amazing things.